Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. This is the meeting of the City of Mobile's Board of Adjustment for Monday, September 13th, 2021. General procedures for this remote meeting are as follows. An application is called, staff will admit the concerned parties associated with an application into the meeting. Once the parties have joined the meeting, I will state the board's rules regarding the number of speakers as well as speaking time. Each application is limited to a maximum of 4 speakers in support or in opposition, with a limit of 5 minutes per speaker. At the beginning of the public hearing, the application will present their case. The applicant I should say, will present their case with an up to additional 3 speakers if applicable. For each speaker at the end of the presentation, I will ask if there's any questions of the board members. Once the board concludes their questions of the speaker in support of an application, I will then call interested parties to speak. At the end of each speaker's presentation, well, I again ask if there are any questions of the board. The applicant will be given an opportunity for a rebuttal in accordance with the board's rules with the 2-minute limitation. After the end of the rebuttal, I will declare the public hearing closed and the board will go into deliberation. After the board has rendered a decision, the applicant and concerned parties will leave the meeting or will be sent back to the waiting room and the host will disconnect. As a reminder, it takes 5 votes to affirm a motion to approve a variance. And we'll start with roll call, starting with Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Golden.
Present.
Mr. Metcalf.
Here.
Mr. Milling. Jeremy.
Must be muted. We know he's there.
I think he's frozen.
Okay, Mr. Burrows.
Here.
And Mr. Morris is not present at the moment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Milling.
Here.
And then William Guess as chair. So we have a quorum. We have 6 of the 7 members present. Takes 5 to affirm a motion, as I stated earlier. And we need to adopt the agenda. Chair, entertain a motion.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, agenda is adopted as presented. Let's start with holdovers. This is 6405, 5915, 5272, 3366, 3139, 1640 regarding 1757 Government Street. Margaret, if you'll invite the applicant and interested parties.
Okay.
Holdovers. This is 6405, 5915, 5272.
Okay, Mr. Hard, I've just muted you because you're giving feedback. If you would, please silence the live stream.
It says I'm joined by phone.
Okay.
Hi, it's Rebecca.
Yes, ma'am, you're in the meeting. If you'll give us a moment, we'll go ahead and give an overview to the commission and then the chairman will address.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I have it admitted into the meeting, the applicant, as well as Brenda Bolton and Reverend Thomas Hurd. Before the presentations begin, I do want to draw to the attention of the commission and read into the record as required. The commission has received correspondence from Ms. Persekian regarding this application. There's a copy of a lot of the back and forth between her and Ms. Bolton. You also have emails from Suzanne Schwartz, Bill Boswell, Bill Cutts, John Cutts, Chloe Tyner, Reverend heard. And then additional comments via the portal from Chloe Tyner, in addition to comments from Ms. Bolton, who's also in the meeting. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Okay. This is a holdover as stated from the previous month. There was an issue, if I remember, with public notice. Margaret, has that been satisfied?
Yes, yes, sir. We sent out the additional notices. Also, if I may draw to the attention of the board, I've just admitted Mr. Gregory Morris Sr., the newest board member. So he is now in the meeting as well.
All right, welcome, Mr. Morris.
Okay,
Alright.
thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, we're glad to have you. Just so that you'll be familiar with the rules, it takes 5 members to vote to affirm a motion in favor of an application or to deny. And the applicant that we're looking at today, this first one is a holdover from last month. They had to provide additional public notice to some of the surrounding areas, and that has been completed. Ms. Persekian, if you will provide us kind of an overview again. The staff has recommended for approval, and there were conditions that were placed as part of that recommendation. Have you looked at the conditions?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, I wrote the voluntary exclusion, I did everything that I could possibly to satisfy Miss Bolton and the Government Street corridor. So I have looked at it all.
And you're in agreement with those conditions?
Yes.
In
Yes.
addition to the voluntary, I guess, a restriction or a covenant?
Yes, I'm fine with all of that.
Okay. Is there any questions of the board for the applicant?
I don't have any.
Okay. Do we have anyone that's in the waiting room that wishes to speak in support of the application today, Ms. Pappas?
I've admitted into the meeting Ms. Brenda Bolton as well as Thomas Hurd. They are the only other people in the meeting or the waiting room to speak regarding this application.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bolton.
Hello, am I on?
Yes, ma'am. How are you doing today?
Okay, how are you?
We're good. Refresh my memory. Are you in support or opposition of this application today?
With the voluntary covenant, which Ms. Persekian has been kind enough to include, I'm speaking in support of her variance today.
Can you tell the board what that restriction would be?
Yes, we worked with her off and on all week. And I really want to say it's been a pleasure to interact with her. She couldn't have been more accommodating and forthcoming with us. And the things that we finally winnowed down, we tied to the current Chapter 64 zoning and also the proposed UDC definitions for a lounge. And so we have asked her to exclude, and she has agreed to exclude micro brewery, distillery, nightclub, adult entertainment venue, hookah lounge, and we had a little and circus on the event side. And then we worked through sort of a definition for music club and carnival. And we agreed that a carnival, which is for a fundraiser, for a community or charitable group, or for a children's event, would be acceptable to the neighborhood, and other types of carnivals would be excluded. And a music club we finally defined as as a business, an ongoing business for the promotion of musical acts for a fee. And with that definition, she agreed to exclude that. We think those are very reasonable exclusions that she's agreed to, tied to definitions that are either currently in use or proposed in the zoning code. And we're satisfied with those, and we look forward to working with her and supporting her business going forward. I will say, in my interactions with neighbors and the neighborhood through this process, that the only thing that came up, the two things that came up, neither of which really have to do with the variance before you today, but the two things that came up, which she is now aware of, was a concern over late night outdoor music and litter from outdoor events that run late. I think she's tuned into both of those, and she's made a verbal commitment to work with us to see that those don't become problems in the neighborhood. And she seems very committed to being a contributing member of our historic district for Lioncoff and for the general area and the Government Street corridor. So we're pleased to welcome her, and I want to voice my full support for her application as she has submitted it.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the board for Ms. Bolton? Okay, Margaret, we have another individual in the waiting room.
He's in the meeting. It's Reverend Thomas Hard.
Reverend Thomas,
Yes,
are you in support of the application or are you in opposition today?
I was speaking in opposition.
Okay. If you'll proceed with your points.
Well, we're the neighbors, the closest neighbor immediately to the east of the pillars. And I guess, given what I've heard about now, that the neighborhood association has been meeting with her, I'm surprised that we didn't have an opportunity to talk. Because a lot of what our concerns are have to do with the operations that have been there in the past. I will say that my heart was not strangely warmed by the late notice that we received for the meeting that arrived here at the church on the 9th of September, having been postal metered on the 7th and created on the 2nd. Seems a little like we ought to be working to exceed expectations rather than meet minimum standards. Our concerns are multifold. I mean, one is that as we understand it, the variance, granting the variance, puts that variance on the property in perpetuity. If that's not correct, please correct me. And in essence, that kind of moves this to a different kind of property. It almost makes it a B2. And I don't think that that's consistent with the idea of having areas that are set up as B1 or B2 and so on and so forth. We'd like to see that the variance be temporary as pertain to this particular occupancy. Since this is the first time where there's been a variance requested for an events venue, I would have to say that what we've experienced in the past was probably operating outside of what it should have been. And I realize that activities in the past are no prediction of the future, but our experience has been with a band or a DJ operating in an outside place late into the evening. In our case, it wasn't so late into the evening, but it happened to hit during Holy Week services in a couple of years ago. We asked them to turn the music down, and that was declined. So there's a little sensitivity on that. There were other events that were held that the previous tenant held that overflowed into our parking lot at the church, and we were left with the mess that was there. And it's just not particularly delightful to have to go deal with human waste after an event has happened. Episcopalians are certainly not opposed to or doctrinally opposed to alcohol. I mean, we use fortified wines in most of our churches for communion. I think one of the other concerns, though, is what kind of a clientele we build here, and whether this becomes a neighborhood watering hole or it brings people from other parts. Again, I'll say that some of the concerns could have been mitigated had we had the opportunity to speak with Ms. Persekian, but there you go.
Any questions of the board for Mr. Reverend Hurd?
Nope.
Okay. Well, a couple of things to clarify. This property, if the board should approve the variance, the zoning would not change. It's only a use specific. Is that correct, Margaret? And also, based on my time on the board, there have been previous variances for this property. I've been involved in a couple of them. One of which was the outdoor area when it was created several years ago. And in reference to the noise and the parking issues, I guess I'll have to defer to staff on how to address those situations if they were previous problems.
The site would still be subject to the noise ordinance. However, the parking has been essentially as is over the previous iteration of variances. The site as developed right now, this is its 6th variance, because variances are use and site plan specific. So any deviation from that specificity requires that the application come back before the board, such as what you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, when the outdoor seating area was added. But again, going back to the noise, the site is still subject to the noise ordinance. And additionally, would have to comply with the litter ordinance as well. Ms. Persekian did provide, and each of you received a copy of, I'm not sure if you can see it, if it's on the screen. These are the additional conditions that Ms. Persekian agreed to in terms of operating the business.
Okay, they're not on the screen at the moment.
Can I speak to his comments just really quick?
Yeah, you have a 2-minute time period for rebuttal.
Okay, I take full responsibility for not reaching out to you. And I really feel bad about that. And maybe if we could, if I could come over to visit or you could come visit me, I really just want to make things good for the neighborhood and the community. And maybe we can come up with something as far as parking, or, I'm surprised people would even park there, but during Holy Week, I'm sure we can work something out. And I'm really sorry that I didn't come over and talk to you earlier.
Okay.
I didn't, it's an oversight on my part, and I'm very sorry.
Well, I think those are legitimate concerns based on previous history. That
Definitely.
Okay, any questions of the board? Ms. Persekian, do you have any other comments in rebuttal or any other than those? Okay, that'll conclude our public hearing on this application. Any comments or questions of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Okay, subject to the conditions and exclusions as offered.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. please do meet with
I definitely will.
Reverend Herndon regarding
Thank
these.
you. I will. And thank you all very much.
Okay, Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room and bring in the next applicant and anyone that may be interested.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'll need to, are we on 1812 Old Shell?
yes.
All right, so
This will be 6406, 6383, 4797, 4783, 671 regarding 1812 Old Shell Road. And Mr. Golden has recused himself. We still have 6 members available to vote in favor of a motion. Therefore, we'll continue.
Mr. Chairman, I'm admitting the applicant into the meeting, Stephen Howe. However, it shows he's still connecting to audio.
Okay.
But Mr. Howe, are you in the meeting now? Can you hear us? Mr. Howe? Okay. Mr. Howe?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have now been admitted into the meeting. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Howe is the only person in attendance on this application.
Okay, and we had any correspondence regarding this application? We have,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Mr. Howe?
Can you hear me?
yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Howell, your application was recommended for approval subject to conditions. Have you seen the conditions? Okay, and we had any correspondence regarding this application?
Mr. Howe, you need to cut off your live stream.
Got it. How's
Thank
that?
you.
Okay.
Yeah, much better. Have you reviewed the conditions?
I have, and I'm in agreement with them.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, staff recommended for approval subject to conditions. The applicant is in agreement with the conditions. We have no one in the waiting room either in favor or in opposition to this application, and no correspondence has been received. This will conclude our public hearing on the application, and the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve subject to conditions.
That's exactly right.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Application's approved with the conditions as listed. All right, Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room and bring in the next application. This will be 6407, 4282 regarding 1590 Regency Drive.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I am admitting Winston and Lakita Davison into the meeting. One of their connections, Illustrate, is still connecting to audio. While they're getting connected, I do need to draw to the attention of the commission. You have received forwarded from staff various emails from regarding these applications and concerns associated. You have emails from Kenneth Wiley, Gloria Wagner, Carolyn and Beth Atkinson. You also have from the applicant a copy of their truck scale weight. Additionally, you received forwarded video and photos from Mr. Wiley as well. Mr. or Ms. Davison, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. and Ms. Davison are the only people that have signed up to speak or participate in the meeting.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This application was recommended for denial by the staff, and we've had several correspondence from various members of the neighborhood and community. Will you tell the board why we should consider otherwise as it relates to the application?
Yes, like we had stated on last month, we are only requesting permission to park the vehicle here in between loads and like on the weekend. Like I think the neighbors are thinking that we're trying to get the community rezoned and stuff like that, because I went through and I read the comments, and we're not trying to do that. We're just simply requesting to park here while we're empty. So I mean, if it's too heavy, for my husband to bring, the truck in loaded, we're just simply asking if he could park his truck and trailer here. Like when he's unloaded, for safety purposes. I read some of the comments and they reflected back and said that he's gonna put holes in the road, and our neighbor, Mr. Wiley, is recording our home like we're criminals. He's called the police on us. We've been dealing with this issue since 2018, and we're not, we're law-abiding citizens. We're not trying to, do anything. We're just simply trying to, make an honest living and work every day. But, since 2018, we've been harassed, provoked, and everything. So
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant? Last minute.
Yeah, I do, Greg Morris.
Yes, sir. If you'll proceed.
What is, he's a commercial truck hauling what? When it's loaded, you said something about when it's being loaded and when it's versus unloaded.
Yes, when it's loaded, most of the time it's, it's maybe equipment or just freight, It's nothing hazardous or anything like that, loaded, because I can't carry anything hazardous. But like I said, just general freight.
Okay, where's it located when you're parking it?
I'm parking it on my property, behind my house, behind my garage. It's out of, it's not in no one's,
wait.
In no one's way or anything like that. I'm at a loss, why is it such a problem?
Mr. Morris, you got any further questions?
I don't see a problem with it myself, other than that.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I got a question for him.
proceed.
Yes.
Sir.
Could I ask him that question?
Please.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me talk about your truck. I'm concerned in two ways. I'm concerned for the neighborhood community, and I'm concerned for you too in your job. What would happen if you couldn't park that truck in that neighborhood to your job? In other words, to your life. What would happen? Could you put that truck somewhere else?
I would definitely, make other arrangements, try to make other arrangements. Yeah.
I don't quite understand the question. Could you repeat that?
What the question is simply this. I'm an advocate of the code. You know, when the code is established in a neighborhood's zoning, R1 neighborhoods, R2, B1, B2, I support all of that in the city's agenda in that. I really don't care, even if it's me. I'm not going to deliberately try to violate that code or get around it. So what I'm trying to say to you is that I have a tendency to side with the neighborhood, but I am concerned about your livelihood if the panel here agree with the city that you can't park that truck there.
Right. And before before I had started, parking, was able, started parking my truck, on my property or whatever. I had some officers, I spoke with some officers, and they told me, as long as, it's on my property, not in the road, what I'm saying, blocking no one like that, that it was fine. So with them telling me that, then I went and purchased, a trailer that, I could and would be able to maneuver to put in my yard, but like I said, I mean, if they don't approve me to park the trailer there, then I guess, I just gotta find other means, unfortunately, I would
Have
just
you
have
tried to find other means?
I have.
Well,
to make it
what I'm
clear,
really trying to say to you is that I don't want to throw up my hand and say, "Oh, you can't do it." The code speaks for itself, and the whole city down there basically is saying you can't do this. And I am concerned about any man trying to make a living, and you sound like you're a legitimate man trying to make a living driving that truck, because if it wasn't for people driving that truck, we'd all be in bad shape nationwide.
Yes, sir.
I'm just a little concerned what you would do if this panel, I can't speak for the rest of the panel. I can only,
Right.
I can only speak for myself.
Yes,
The
sir.
city has already told you in so many words that they disagree with you.
But at the last meeting, they stated, if I gave, because they were saying that the weight requirement was like 8,000. So I asked them, if I came in and detached my trailer from my truck, and that would put my trailer under 8,000 empty, if that would work.
But that's not why your neighbors are objecting, because of the weight of the truck. Most of them, and I don't want to insult any of them, is not smart enough to know that the trucks can only hold so much, the street can only hold so much weight when these big trucks come in. They basically just don't want the truck there, period, because it's cumbersome, it's awkward when they're trying to drive and what have you. I'm more concerned, well, I'm concerned about the roads crumbling too, but that's another story.
Right.
That's not what they're thinking. And that's just my opinion. I
can't understand why.
But anyway, let me give it back to the chairman. I've made my point, and I'm gonna give it back to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burris.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions of the board for the applicant?
Yeah, Greg Morris, it was just the fact that, what is the length of the trailer?
It's 40 feet in length.
So it's not like a flatbed long, that is.
It's not a semi trailer. No, like I said, it's a 40-foot trailer, and I have more than enough room to put it on my property, and I'm at a dead end street, where my property ends, and it's not in anyone's way. You can barely see it unless come down to the end of the street, which only my property is there, so I mean, I understand what's going on. I understand, but
Mr. Davison, I have a question kind of along the same lines. How do you get it down there? Do you have to back down that street?
Yes, sir. I back down.
So you can't just pull straight into your property. You have to actually back the trailer completely down the street backwards until you get on your property.
Yes, sir.
But
What's the length of the vehicle? I guess the truck and the trailer is going to be about 55, 60 feet in total.
Yes, sir.
length? Okay,
Yeah, right at 60 feet, 58, 60 feet.
okay.
So this is a picture of it, what we seeing here now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I know
Metcalf
that
first?
a question for staff. Exactly, well, from the code standpoint, what is the supposed violation here that would require a variance? Exactly. What is it that why, technically, why is he here?
Okay, you have two reasons. One, you have a home occupation.
Yep.
If you have a business from the home, the business is to take place entirely within the home. The other reason is you are not supposed to have a commercial vehicle and trailer exceeding 8,000 pounds.
Okay,
Now,
so and again, I want to be specific. So it's so the reason, those two reasons are, and it sounds kind of gray, but the business needs to be within the home, and that, I mean, is parking a trailer a business? I don't know. But secondly, it's weight. So
correct.
everything else is just opinions and chaff. Is that correct?
Well, the weight, he did provide the copy of the scales showing the unloaded weight. We did have the neighbor who provided the video that was forwarded to y'all,
Yeah.
as well as the photos. So what the unloaded weight may be below the threshold, but the loaded weight just from a visual far exceeds 8,000 pounds.
That's what the real issue is here. It's not even the issue. I'm talking about technically, because I think we're getting off, we're getting off track. So for all intents and purposes, it's the weight of the vehicle that the neighbor is using, let's say, as the basis of, to try to get rid of that, the man trying to get rid of the activity.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Is there additional questions from the board? We had a second person that asked another question.
yeah, it was Jeremy. In the previous conversation, it seemed like that from the applicant that the description was an unloaded trailer that is being stored on property, but there are numerous pictures of a loaded trailer being stored, it looked like, on and off the property. So it just seemed like some contradiction to me.
Yeah,
Of what's actually being done there.
I agree.
Okay. Any further questions? Margaret, do you have anyone else in the waiting room, either in support or opposition?
No, just Winston and Lakita Davison.
And as you referenced, we had multiple individuals respond in writing correspondence.
Yes, and that has all been forwarded to both the board and the applicant.
Okay. All right. I would say this concludes our public hearing on this application. I would state that based on, lawn care services and other businesses, it's not uncommon to see a trailer and a truck for a commercial purpose in a residential area. However, most are not hauling equipment and materials of the weight in which this applicant is. I would say if it was an unloaded trailer, then they might fall, as Mr. Metcalf stated, below that threshold. And it becomes whether or not it's really a home-based business or, some variation of that. All right.
Yes, sir. And that's all I'm asking for, is to be able to park the trailer at home unloaded.
Margaret, did we conclude the public hearing?
We did.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Davidson, I'm sorry, but we got to conclude any further statements. All right, the staff's recommended for denial. We've had some documents provided by the applicant showing that the tear weight for the trailer without any materials is below the 8,000 pound limit. We've got varying documents showing that it has been at the residence parked with loads in excess of that. So the board has to take that all into consideration. All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just statement. If we deny this, then there's no reason why tomorrow he can't park his unloaded trailer there. Correct? Margaret?
Unloaded, correct. But loaded becomes.
Hold on, I understand. I'm just trying to get to the practical aspects of this and what happens tomorrow. So he is.
Hold on, Mr. Metcalf. Unloaded, he doesn't need a variance.
That's right, and that's why I want to make this clear, and especially to the neighbors. I fully believe that the man intends and wants to park his unloaded trailer there, but there are circumstances that require him to do so because he's got nowhere else to go with it. So again, if we deny it, he still has, the man said, I just want to keep my unloaded trailer there. Well, he can. But if he does start doing having it loaded, then the neighbor can call 311 and lodge a complaint. So I'm just trying for the staff and everybody else, not staff, but the members to realize the practical application of what we do and don't here. So if there's no other, are there any other comments and questions, Mr. Chair?
I would ask the board, is there any other comments or questions? So I think, as Mr. Metcalf stated, the primary question is, are we going to approve the applicant to park his trailer there loaded, which would require the variance?
Right.
If we do not approve the variance, the applicant can still park an empty trailer and business truck on his property.
Yes.
And variance will be mute as it relates.
Okay. With that being said and clarified, and I hope that the participants outside of the staff and board are still hearing this, Margaret?
They're still in the meeting.
Okay, good. Again, I want to be specific that they understand what we do. And I move that we deny the application. And with all the information and discussion that we just had. Anyway, I move for denial.
Okay, I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
My concern with this whole aspect is that it appears that the filming that has taken place by the neighbors and the family feel intimidated as a result. It appears to me that they have always been willing to not park if it was a problem with weight. And with that sense of compromise, I hope that where we are right now with this motion being on its passage, that this will not create a further or deeper division in the community. That's my concern. The applicant has clearly stated that if it's a problem, they will not bring the loaded trailer there. And my concern is that with that compromise still being in place, this family won't endeavor any additional hardship. That's my concern going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, I have a motion with a second. Any further comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Application was denied. And the applicant can talk to staff regarding the implications of parking the unloaded truck and trailer on this private property. All right, Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room and
Okay.
invite our next application.
Yeah, I sort of felt for them.
It sounds like he'll still be able to do what he needs to do, Mr. Burrows.
To the neighborhood, and the neighborhood don't want it.
All right, application
Well,
6341
legally, he can.
and 108 and 1010 First Street. And with Margaret,
Yes, I've admitted Jay Watkins into the meeting. It says he's still connecting to audio. Mr. Watkins is the only person that is signed up.
sounds like he's got live stream on as well.
I think he just,
Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
All right, this is a request for a 6-month extension. Is that my understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And will 6 months be sufficient for the purposes of finishing your project?
That is my understanding, Mr. Chairman. The applicant, in order to get its subdivision approved, ran into an issue with an adjoining property owner and has ultimately had to get a quiet title action because of the COVID pandemic restrictions. As you know, court access has been somewhat limited. At this point, that quiet title action has been completed, and it's my understanding that the applicant has now submitted to the planning staff the required subdivision in order to complete their approval process. And so I do believe that 6 months will allow them to complete this.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant regarding this request for extension? Okay, this will conclude the public hearing on this application. We have no correspondence, correct, Margaret?
that is correct.
Okay, staff's recommending for approval. Chair entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Was there anyone opposed? I should clarify. Okay, motion carried. All right, now we're moving on to application 6414. Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room and invite our next group. This is east side of East I-65 Service Road North and 695 plus or minus south of Workland
Mr.
Street.
Chairman,
Yes,
I've got to recuse myself on this application.
okay. Mr. Milling's recusal, and we still have 6 members present, so we have a quorum. We can continue with the application.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have admitted, I believe, Mr. Tom Clark into the meeting. Mr. Clark, can you hear us? I've admitted CGL into the meeting. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I'm trying to figure out.
Hey, Margaret, Tom is technically challenged.
Should I try this?
Mr. Metcalf, I don't need that.
I know.
We can hear you.
Okay. I think Mr. Metcalf assisted Mr. Clark in,
That's my favorite one on the panel.
all right, Margaret, do we have any correspondence regarding this application or anyone in the waiting room in favor or opposition?
Yes, I'm sorry. I do need to draw to the attention of the board. You have some additional information from Clark Kelly It was sent to you via email. And then Tom Clark is in the meeting to present the application. And Tom, we can.
Mr. Kelly is sitting here with me.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. The application is recommended approval for the access and maneuvering, but the surface variance was recommended for denial. So you want to explain to the board why we should consider, I guess, the surface variance request?
Well, this is Clark Kelly speaking, and if you don't mind, I'd like to just touch on the points of my email that I sent. The first would be that the land area in question drains to a ditch at the east end of the property. And so we're hoping there's room for y'all to consider the impact of adding 10,000 plus or minus feet of impermeable surface versus allowing the existing aggregate to remain. You know, I understand that eco-friendly surfaces are a goal for our city. Another point to consider is that the area of existing aggregate surface is well out of sight from the roadway and would continue to be well contained as it is now. And that aggregate surface has existed for decades without any impact to the neighbors or the road or traffic. And so there's no migration of aggregate into the roadways or any other surfaces. And the main thing that I would like to point out that the staff indicates in their analysis is that what's driving the need for this variance in the first place is simply a parking requirement. We're planning to increase the office area in our building, which requires additional parking. And since there's insufficient parking out front on the west side of the property, we're just proposing to park employee vehicles in the existing shed at the rear of the building. So we're just really asking to use the driveway as it is, which is recommended for approval, and to drive our vehicles to the shed and park them there as is. The only actual changes we're proposing occur in the interior of the building. We're not proposing to change anything at all outside.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant? What's the surface material actually in the shed? Is that gravel aggregate as well?
I believe it's some old pavement. It's not in phenomenal shape, but it's stable and will probably remain plenty suitable for parking.
Okay. The staff's recommendation and conditions for the access maneuvering width requirements, you're in agreement with those. They didn't see any, they didn't see any reason to recommend denial for that.
That's correct. We're in agreement with that recommendation.
Okay. Once again, any questions of the board for the applicant? All right, Margaret, do we have any correspondence again regarding this application?
No, sir, other than what the applicant just reviewed with you, which was submitted via email, and we passed that on to the board.
Okay. All right, I would say this concludes our public hearing for this application. Staff's recommended approval of the access maneuvering width variance, and they recommended denial of the surface variance. The applicant stated that it's an existing aggregate material, and they would like to use it for more or less access to the covered shed where the additional parking will be provided. Further comments of the board? Questions? All right, for chair, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, subject to staff.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room and invite our next applicant, This is 6415 regarding 1209 Government Street. And if we have any correspondence or communications?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the applicant has requested a holdover in reviewing the staff report. He is considering going down the subdivision route, and if he does that, then a variance would not be necessary. However, I do need to bring to the board's attention, you do have emails from Dr. Carolyn Ringhofer as well as Mr. Joseph Ringhofer in opposition.
Okay, do you have anyone that's in the waiting room today?
No,
For
sir.
opposition, okay. All right, any questions of the board? All right, the applicant's requesting a holdover to look at another option as it relates to this property. And as stated, we had a couple individuals correspond in opposition. However, that was to the application, not necessarily to the holdover.
Correct.
All right, that'll conclude our public hearing on this application, and Chair entertain a motion for a holdover at the applicant's request.
So move for a holdover.
I have a motion for a holdover. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Application's held over to the next meeting. All right, Margaret, if you'll clear the waiting room and invite our next applicant, which is 6416. And this will be 1615 Union Street.
Mr. Chairman, I've admitted into the meeting the applicant, Ms. Betty Bush. It says that she is still connecting to audio. We did not receive any correspondence in opposition or in favor.
Okay. Do we have anyone in the waiting room, either in support or opposition today?
No, sir, just Ms. Bush attempting to connect to audio right now.
Okay. Do we have a layout of the facility?
It's just the existing dwelling where she proposes to have more than 6 children.
Was there something that brought this to the staff's attention?
She's currently licensed for 5. She wants to upgrade to 10. And so having more than 6 children in a home-based daycare would require a variance.
All right, thank you. Has Ms. Bush been able to make audio contact?
No, sir. There she comes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bush. Can you hear us?
Ms. Bush, we cannot hear you. Ms. Bush, can you hear us? Could you nod your head? I don't think she has audio at all.
Do we want to come back to this application later?
Yes, we can do that. I will see if I can do via chat some assistance with Ms. Bush. I'll go ahead and enter.
All right, so we're going to do application 6417. And this is regarding 6823 Old Shell Road.
That's correct. I have entered Mark Trey Montana, Mr. Montana, and I apologize if I've butchered your name. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
All right, Margaret, do we have anyone either in opposition or support in the waiting room?
No, sir. The applicant is the only person in attendance at the meeting.
Okay, and do we have any correspondence regarding this application?
None.
Okay, Mark, do you want to tell us why the board should consider approving your variance application? The staff recommended denial.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you very much for your time and, of course, flexibility in today's world with the virtual hearing. I appreciate it. I'm working with Pastor Hall there at Grace Point Church, and they're just trying to gain some additional communication with not only the potential possible church members, but also with the community. They've done a really, really great job. If you folks have had an opportunity to go by the facility and see all the landscaping and what they do with keeping the facility updated and attractive. And I think it's an asset there in the facility. And there again, as all people and all businesses and all houses of worship are just trying to get the message out again about what they offer there to the community, and again to prospective possible members that might join the community. They also want to do obviously some things there that are open to public, not just church members. And it's a way again for them to get that message across to all the vehicles that pass up and down Old Shell Road there, that pass their facility and their campus.
Okay, are there any questions of the board for the applicant's rep? Tell me how high will this sign, if it was approved? Is it a monument sign that's elevated, or is it ground level?
No, sir, there's an existing brick structure there that they want to keep and maintain the integrity because it complements the adjacent building on Old Shell Road. The electronic portion of the sign is only going to be about 5.5, 6 feet to the top of the electronic portion. And then there will be a top portion above that that will obviously have the church name, and from the ground to the top of that would be about 12 feet off the ground. It'll be at a peak, it's got a roof line to it. So again, it would match some of the architecture there at the church.
And Margaret, I guess this is how far from the adjacent property, the current monument sign that they're proposing to alternate or modify?
Right now, you've got a buffer that's drawn out around the property. I think that is more or less from the center of the property, as we didn't have a real precise location from which to go.
I'm trying to see where the sign is actually on the property in relation.
It's right here. There's the existing sign.
Okay. Now the neighborhood to the west of Foreman, they have if I remember right, a brick wall with a landscape buffer. And then to the right, it appears there's some landscape buffer. Is there a fence line, Mark, that separates that from the church?
Are you talking about the east side of the church?
There we go. Here's what I'm trying to see. Yeah. Yeah, there is a fence that separates it, plus a green space or a green buffer.
Margaret,
Yep,
can you show the
there's quite,
sign? Okay, there's the sign.
That's the existing sign. I'm not sure that a rendering of the proposed sign was submitted with the application.
it, it should have been on that same page, that one sheet that we submitted.
So will the current sign, the profile of it change? It sounds like from what you described, it would be taller.
Yes, sir. Again, it's going to be the same shape. It'll be just a bit taller than it is now. Probably about another 4 feet to that point at the very top.
So you're looking at about 8 feet high, possibly, maybe 9. Margaret, can you zoom to the right, or same view, but just move the view to the right towards Foreman? Okay, yeah, I see the fence in the wall I was describing. Okay. All right. Any questions of the board for the applicant? All right, this will conclude the public hearing on this application. And the staff's recommended for denial. It's within the 300 feet of residentially zoned property to both the east and west. I would state that in the past, the board has been considerate if there was a buffer and some other features that would prohibit the sign from intruding on the neighbor's property as far as any kind of light or disruption to their enjoyment of their property. But we've also had some that we've denied for the same purpose, that they were within that 300 feet and did not meet the requirements of the code. All right, Chair, entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? Do I have a second? Once again, Chair, entertain a motion. Second.
Get a second.
All right, the motion fails for lack of a second.
All right.
All right, once again, Chair, entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion to deny.
Okay, I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Application's been denied. All right, looks like Ms. Bush has joined us. Do we want to go back to the previous application, Margaret?
Ms. Bush, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Yay, thank you. Okay, I'll back us up. Hold on.
All right, Ms. Bush.
Yes, sir.
This is regarding application 6416, 1615 Union Street.
Yes, sir.
And your application is to allow a home-based daycare in excess of 5.
Yes, sir.
And let's see here, in a residential zoned area. The staff's recommended for denial. Do you want to tell the board why we should consider otherwise?
Yes, sir. I'm presently licensed for 5 in my home, and I'm turning away parents who are essential workers, who are very good neighbors of mine, as well as other people who call in the run of a day. And I don't have room to accept their children. And we have a lot of daycare homes and daycares that say that they're open past 6 o'clock in the evening, but they're not. and therefore we're having parents who are leaving their children with someone who's not really trustworthy enough to keep their children. And, I've been in business since April of 2010, and, I have a very good reputation with keeping the children and, being an access to the public, to my community, being a good base daycare for, parents to feel good and safe at going to work and leaving their children. And so, I'm just praying that you all would give me the use variance, so that I can go forward and try to be, a help to more parents so that they can feel free to go to work and do good work because they're not worried about are their kids safe.
Okay, is there any questions of the board for the applicant? Ms. Bush, in looking at the property, the structure of the home in which you're working does not look that large. Is there sufficient space for adding?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I promise you, I have a pretty good sized home, and it's enough room for I've had fire inspectors to come out and look, and I've had daycare licensors, and they come in and they look and they were like, yeah, you got a very good setup, and yeah, I could go for that, and I could see you passing fire inspection. And once I've gotten, met the requirements like the hood and, whatnot. And so, I don't, and all my neighbors or my relatives are very good friends. I was born in this neighborhood. And so, we have a very good, relationship, and, it wouldn't interfere with any of my neighbors because I have enough property on my, room on my property to accommodate parking and parents coming and going.
Okay. Margaret, do we have anyone correspond regarding this application, either in support or opposition?
No, sir.
Okay, do we have anyone in the waiting room in support or opposition?
No, sir. Only Ms. Bush.
Okay. All right. Once again, any questions of the board for the applicant?
What are the chances that I can be granted my variance today? Because I really want this. I do, because it's my passion to take care of children. And I hate to tell a parent, no, I don't have room for your child. And they're passing right by my home every day, having to take their children way out, in order to go to work that's near their home, And so I'm just praying that, everybody give me the use.
All right. I think that concludes our public hearing on the application. And the staff recommended for denial. Ms. Bush states that she's had a good rapport with both the fire and the daycare licensing and has been in the business for 11 years or so. Chair, entertain a motion. Margaret, if you'll close out the waiting room as we already conclude our public hearing.
Chairman.
All right. Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Motion, Mr. Chairman,
You have a motion?
motion to approve.
Okay, a motion
Second.
to approve. Do I have a second? Do I have further
Second.
discussion? I think somebody was going to make a statement.
No, I was trying to offer a motion, and it's consistent with Brother Burris there.
Okay. I have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion?
That is to comply with the fire department comments, correct?
Yeah, it'll have to meet all the requirements for fire code and daycare licensing and other requirements as necessary. All right. We have a motion to approve with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right. Your application's been approved. All right, have a good day. All right, so if you'll clear the waiting room, Margaret, we'll move on to, I believe it's application 6418 regarding 690 Ziegler Circle East.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've admitted Chris Lieb and McCollum, Chad McCollum into the meeting. They're connecting to audio now. We did forward to the board an email from Misty Eubanks, Daniel and Misty Eubanks of Eubanks Property, who have no objection to the request, and they are a property owner at 690 Ziegler Circle East. Mr. McCollum, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris, can you hear us?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair, everyone has been admitted into the meeting. They are the owners and the owner's rep. We have no one else to speak in opposition or concern. And the only correspondence we received was that from the Eubanks where there are no objections.
All right. Mr. McCollum, regarding the application, the staff's recommended for approval the variance for the frontage trees variance, and with the condition that a donation would be coordinated with the Mobile Tree Bank, but they recommended denial of the landscaping, perimeter tree planting, parking service variance. So you want to tell the board why we should consider that aspect of your variance request?
I'm sorry, I could not hear all of that. If you would repeat, please.
All right, the staff's recommended to the board. I'll go on to the second part of it. First part, have you seen staff's recommendations? Mr. McCullough, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Could you repeat what was approved and what's recommended for approval and what's recommended for denial?
Okay, staff recommended to the board the following findings of fact for approval of the request for a frontage tree planting variance, and with the condition that a donation would be made to the Mobile Tree Bank.
Okay.
Okay, are you in agreement with that aspect of the variance request?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the second part was their recommendation that we deny the landscaping and perimeter tree planting and parking surface variance. That you obviously would be in opposition to, so would you tell us why the board should consider a variance for that part of your application?
Well, what we were looking for in the parking, obviously, when we purchased the property here, of course, we were looking for more square footage for office and warehouse, but as a plus to that was a lot next door that was needed to park our equipment in. And so what we were asking for is a variance to be able to put rock for parking our trailers and our trucks and our bucket truck, just like every other property around this property has. All of our neighbors have rock as a parking area, and so we were just asking to be allowed to use rock as a surface for the parking, which, you know, obviously park all of our trucks, trailers and stuff, as I stated. So that's what we were in hopes of getting there again, purchasing this property, was the fact that we had the lot next door that could be used for parking equipment. You know, we've been parking for 4 months now, basically in the street, which has kind of caused a problem with some of the other commercial neighbors here with bringing their trailers and trucks up and down the road, which is, you know, it's worked out pretty good, but you know, from time to time we're in the way of the neighbors. So we're just asking that we can finish our lot, put the rock so we can get our equipment in the fenced in area, you know, that obviously we got quite a bit of money tied up in equipment we'd like to have behind our fence in order to not have any damage done to our equipment.
Okay, is the lots been combined legally?
Sir?
Are they two separate lots as a matter of record, or are they combined?
They're combined. We had drawn it in. I guess Chris could speak to that, how we had to submit it.
So I'll jump in real quick. It's currently been submitted for them to be combined as a subdivision. It technically is not yet, but we are getting them combined into one.
Okay, so we're not looking at offsite parking or, that's where I was going with the question.
No, sir.
Okay, and these trucks are commercial trucks like bucket and heavy equipment and such. Is that my understanding?
Well, we have two that are. We have a bucket truck and what we call a derrick truck, but the remainder of all of our fleet is pickup trucks that the employees use, you know, to go to job sites and what have you. So
They're the majority of our fleet is just regular half-ton trucks, regular pickup trucks.
Okay. Margaret, go back to the previous where it shows this property in relation to the adjacent. Okay.
As you can see, the property, you're looking at the front of our building, the property to the left is all rock. Once you pull in off this concrete drive, just like we have a concrete drive to the road, his parking area he's got a bunch of tank trucks. Well, two places down is a bunch of tank trucks parked on rock. The property directly adjacent to us is a site contractor with heavy equipment, large trailers, that kind of thing. They're all rock. And then where the road connects to Ziegler, where Ziegler Circle East connects to Ziegler, is that entire parking lot in the back is also rock for all their half-ton pickup trucks and things of that nature.
Okay. And it looks like there's sufficient vegetation based on this aerial on the property that'll remain.
Yes, there's about 300 feet of vegetation on our lot.
right behind where we're asking to gravel, of course, we own that property too, and there's another 300 foot that is not being cleared for this time. It's just all wooded.
Okay. And it appears there's a concrete ditch that.
Right, there's a storm drain in the front at the road that drains back to that underneath our property. And so that's still existing, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, Margaret, we had no comments, communications regarding this application?
Other than the one that had no opposition.
Okay. All right. I would say this concludes our public hearing on this application. The applicant's in agreement with the approval for the frontage tree variance with the donation to the Mobile Tree Bank. They're requesting a variance for the landscape and perimeter tree planting and parking surface variance, primarily the parking surface variance. And we had only one comment submitted in support. Chair, entertain a motion.
A motion that we approve.
Subject to staff's recommendation regarding the donation to the tree bank.
So move.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And Margaret, I believe this concludes our agenda for today as it relates to applications and holdovers and extensions.
That is correct. I would just like to remind the board, thank you so much due to our issue with legal ads for agreeing to meet with us again next week, Monday, September 20th at 2 o'clock. We will be getting the report links and the Zoom link to the board members tomorrow.
Okay, and that is 3 applications or 4?
Actually, no, I believe that was 6.
Oh, wow.
This was going to be an extremely heavy agenda. Give me a moment.
I think it was 6, Margaret.
6. Yes, it'll be 6.
All right, Mr. Anderson, do we have anything for the board while we're in all?
No, sir, I don't have a report for you. We got a few things going on, but nothing pressing right now.
Okay. Mr. Morris, welcome to the board. We appreciate you joining in virtually, and hopefully we'll get to meet you in person before too long.
All right, thank you.
And if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to us. You'll have our contact information, and I'll be glad to meet with you or talk to you at a later time.
Sound good.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Davis.
just a point of clarification, as it relates to who we are. I've heard a couple of references to a commission versus a board. What are we? Are we a commission or are we a board? Just what are we?
I understand we are the City of Mobile's Board of Zoning Adjustment.
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
I just overlook when we hear commission or some other variation of it. I know primarily we just got to emphasize what the rules are. But anyway, I appreciate it. This will conclude our meeting unless anyone else has items for the agenda. All right, thank you. Y'all take care.